Welcome to the Rockstar Principles Podcast, coming straight to you from Rock and Roll, USA, covering the latest and greatest in educational leadership trends, news, and awesomeness for principals all over the world. Now, here are your hosts, the boss, John Ross, and the Doctor of Proctors, Nick Indeglio.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're here with the Cabrini EDU 646 cohort. We've got a group of students, some of whom are finishing up their principalship program, and another group that's just starting. We're going to open up with a discussion of Todd Whitaker and the 18 things great principals do differently, along with the interview segment from earlier this year when Todd Whitaker was at the PAE SSP conference. So Kathy, one of our students, has agreed to open up the convo for us, so tell us what you think, Kath.
Although all of the suggestions for what great principals do, the first one is probably the one that speaks the most to me, to never forget that it's people, not programs, that determine the quality of the school. I do believe that one of the first things that a principal needs to do when they go into a building is establish relationships and trust, and make sure that the people you are working for know the vision and know what's going on and can trust you and know that you care about them.
All right, any thoughts on Kathy's choice of number one there? Anybody else?
So with tying into that, I feel like if you take a look at number 11, that principals are loyal to their students, to their teachers, and to the school. They expect loyalty to students and the school to take precedence over loyalty to themselves. So that sort of ties in with it, with the positive relationships and things, and that trust, that sense of trust. So I feel like it's important that principals build that sense of trust through the positive relationships, in order to be loyal to all the students and teachers at school.
So relationships, building trust,
Yes.
and then the notion of people, which contributes directly to relationships, is where we are and what we're talking about there. All right, so that's a common theme emerging from Whitaker's work there. All right, who else? Jump in.
Both of those are really great points. I tend to really gravitate towards the 18th one. I think the 18th one is something that you can really start focusing and win right away, establishing your clear expectations at the start of the school year, and then the key words are following them consistently throughout the year. I think staff really appreciate that, and that can build trust with your staff too, that this is who I am, this is what I expect, and then not to change those. Too many times I see principals that kind of waver from what they originally feel or kind of lay out in the beginning of the year. And that's not good. You need to be consistent, and your staff needs to know what to expect from you. And I think that's really profound.
I agree with 18 too. That was the one that spoke most about building trust to get the people on board with you if they truly understand where you're coming from, why you do things a certain way, and it builds that trust that if they don't understand, they'll be able to communicate with you of, like, if they're not sure of your expectations or why they're there. If you do that at the beginning of the year, they know all the way through that what you're doing, and why you're doing it.
And that's a battle you can win in the first year. We were told just the other day that sometimes that trust factor takes 2-3 years to really win in a building, depending on the situation and the type of building you're going into. So I feel like this is one that you can really take a hold of right from the get-go.
And I think to piggyback on that, on 18, you could actually look at number 17 about improving negative staff members. And if you are following, being consistent, I think you can win some of those members over.
And also with 17, I agree that supporting teachers also build trust. And so that whole building trust helps teachers become more effective teachers by providing them with the training that they need. I think it ties into the trust factor.
And I think going back to number one, never forget it's the people, not the programs. Providing that professional development to teachers, gaining their trust. You can spend so much money on different programs to use, but it's, the most important thing is having that well-established curriculum and helping teachers to discover ways to effectively instruct to meet the standards that the curriculum is based on.
I agree with that as well. I was gonna cite number one. That it starts with the people, and everything else should follow behind that. Surround yourself with good people, develop people that you have, and then the rest should hopefully fall into place.
I thought someone over here was gonna say something, and then they.
Well, I also was following up on number one. I think 1 and 3 sort of can go hand in hand, because I also believe that an administrator, once they establish their relationships with the staff, that they need the staff to take responsibility for their instruction in the classroom and realize that they are the ones that will make the difference in the students and the students' education. It's not the program that they're teaching, it's how they're teaching.
All right, excellent point.
I also chose number 3, taking responsibility for your own performance as well as your teacher's performance. Having ownership, because you are the main driving force in your building. So if you have a failing teacher, it's not necessarily the teacher's fault. You're not doing your job providing them with the proper in-service or the proper intervention to be successful. So if you surround yourself with good staff, like we keep going back to number 1, it's your job to keep them on point, being visible, making sure that they're doing what it is that they need to be doing. That's your main priority.
I think number 4 ties directly to that as well, and Todd Whitaker also talks a lot about even the underperforming staff members, that you treat them the same way you treat everyone else. You gotta treat them with respect and give them those opportunities. But then there comes a time where, you might have to get them off the bus. It gets to that point too. Did he speak in the interview portion? And I don't quite remember the notion of what do your best people think. Was that part of the interview segment as well? One of the things he preaches is when you have an important decision to make as a principal, that you've got 100 staff members, let's say, and he drives you towards what are your best people going to think about this? Why do you think that might be relevant in your role as a principal?
Because they're the informal leaders of the building, that how they view the school and how they buy into your ideas as an instructional leader. That kind of is a domino effect for the rest of the teachers, whether they agree with the principal or not. Those informal leaders are more than likely really respected by their colleagues.
And I think those teachers have more of a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, and they're willing to try new things. And I think that, like Steph said, like if they have buy-in to it, definitely they are, staff members that are going to hopefully persuade other staff members to try new things as well.
Those top people that we're talking about in your building, those are your change agents. They're the ones that are going to take what you believe in or want to implement and really get others to buy in, as other people are saying. They're the ones that are going to change. You're your main change agent in your building, but then those top leaders you have are your other change agents to do the rest of the work.
A few of you were talking the other day about the going back to number 3 with taking responsibility, the notion of how quickly you're turned off by administrators who utilize the I, me type of speaking versus the us and we type of speaking. I think number 3 speaks to that as well, in that if you have really good scores one year and you're taking credit for that as the principal, but the next year your scores aren't as good and you're blaming, the poor central office vision or the way, PD was implemented or a bad math teacher in particular grade level. I mean, that sticks out like a sore thumb right away, in terms of just ownership, the whole idea of that.
I actually think we just got finished reading the Whitaker book, but in the Whitaker book it said specifically, like, a very effective principal takes full responsibility for their staff, and if they have a failing school, they feel like they have failed. So that's just touching on what you had just said.
Yeah, direct connection. And what about, we talked yesterday about Doug Reeves's 90-90-90 research in schools that overperform for their demographic, and what was the characteristic there that was relevant?
Ownership. Everybody had ownership in the vision, and they understood.
Yep, teachers took ownership. Any other of the Whitaker 18 things that jumped out at you that you think particularly might speak to becoming a successful administrator? We cover all the big ones there. there's a wrap-up, our first practice, getting our group in front of the microphone. We'll be right back.
And now a word from our fake sponsors. But we'd really love if they were our real sponsors. Seriously, we would love it.
What do you get out of a Cabrini education?
I got hands-on experience right off the bat.
A whole new way of looking at the world.
I got a son who amazes me.
I got professors who care about me.
I got to dance with a fanatic.
I got a job all lined up. Woo!
I got some numbers about that right here.
We'll give you a couple seconds to read it.
I got to make this commercial.
Do you like it?
What do you think?
Pretty awesome, right?
Cabrini College.
Do something extraordinary.
Alright, so after listening to the TED Talk by Conrad Wolfram, who is a technologist and businessman and invented the website computerbasedmath.org, our group is going to discuss some of the main points that we learned. Conrad believes that our math educational system is failing our students because it does not prepare them for real-world math. He believes we need to focus more on utilizing computers and technology for computation so students can spend their energy on higher-level thinking and conceptual understanding. Math in the real world is not pencil and paper calculations, but actual applications by geologists, engineers, scientists, and architects. Our current math education spends 80% of the time on calculation and teaching concepts in isolation.
So ladies, do you think there's anything wrong with the way we teach math today?
After listening, I agree with Conrad. I understand his viewpoints and why he feels the need to change that. But I do feel hesitant on jumping solely into technology for math. I think that there's still a lot of background that's important for students to learn. And it could be the comfort level of what we were taught and how we feel comfortable teaching it. So
I think about if their technology is not available at all. What happens if I don't have a calculator, iPad, or anything available to use? You know, so if we have no technology available to us, then we have nothing. So if it's just solely computers that we're focusing on, then how would we be able to do anything if there's no technology available?
And as a reading specialist, I always try and link things to teaching of reading and the reading process. And I feel that computation is equitable to decoding skills. So for kids to be proficient readers independently, those decoding skills need to be in place to increase fluency and then to have those higher level thinking skills. So I think it's important to teach the basics, but I also think there definitely needs to be a balance.
with the new Common Core buzzword and how everything is changing, do you think, or how do you think Common Core is addressing these math issues?
I really think that Common Core is starting to make us think this way. If you think about how students are required to solve in multiple ways, it's not just one answer anymore. You have to go back. Can you solve it a different way? Can you solve it a different way? I remember one of the first conferences I went to, I was told a good math lesson of an hour or longer would have 2 or 3 problems that students would be solving. And that just kind of blew my mind, going from the idea of grill and grill and grill, or drill, and to only have 2 or 3 problems. So that really thinking into explaining their thinking, doing a lot of why are you doing this, how did you do it, why did you choose to do it that way. Also, with even going into standardized testing, they are allowed to use that technology. So as teachers, we need to be preparing them to use it so it's not just sitting on their desk unused while they're taking a very important standardized test now. And also with the Common Core, the questions are much higher level, much deeper. The span of Common Core, the catchphrase is that instead of being a mile long, it's now a mile deep. And curriculum is changing that way, that we are really only teaching less concepts in a year, but much, much deeper.
Do you agree with Conrad's stance on computers in education?
I definitely do. I think that if we want to prepare our kids to be 21st century learners and be prepared for the jobs that they'll be encountering. Most of those jobs at this point don't even exist. I definitely think that we need to teach kids to think in a higher level, to come up with multiple ways to solve a problem rather than just teaching them how to do that. So I definitely do agree that we do need to be focusing more on the concepts and less on the computation, but there also needs to be a balance.
Conrad mentioned why show a child how to calculate by hand when a computer can do it for them. However, it's important to learn the fundamentals and basic concepts first, in that situation.
I think about it from my special ed background of having to know the basics and fundamentals. It's important for those children that can pick that stuff up easily and understand it and then be able to apply it. But there's some kids that if they don't have that math brain, that they're not going to get it, or it doesn't come as easy. Why, in a way, waste your time drilling and forcing them to really understand it when they can still get to the same answers by using the technology if they just understand what they need to plug in to get to the correct answer, to come up with things? Why try to drill something that's not necessarily important for them to know if they can still get to the correct answer anyway with resources that are available?
So it seems like what we're hearing is that we agree with his idea. We know that we're trending towards the future and that we need to really start to embrace technology in our math classrooms, but there needs to be a balance between, finding the fundamentals and the concepts and then using those at a higher level with computers. That's it.
And now a word from our fake sponsors. But we'd really love if they were our real sponsors. Seriously, we would love it.
All college students look forward to the day they get their degree. But at Cabrini College, you leave with so much more. A new way of looking at the world. New friends. A new sense of direction. And more than 9 times out of 10, a job, or a place in grad school. Sure, there are places where getting a degree is an end in itself, but at Cabrini College, it's just the beginning.
All right, good morning. Today we are discussing an article from the New York Times by Matt Richtel titled "In Classroom of Future, Stagnant Scores." First question that we would like to discuss is since this article discusses stagnant scores in tech-related classrooms, specifically to standardized performance tests, do you feel that incorporating technology into current curriculum enhances and improves the students' content knowledge?
I do, Jay. The technology does enhance a student's content knowledge in certain areas. It certainly is not the end all, but it definitely does take students beyond just what can happen in an atypical or normal classroom setting.
I disagree. I feel that looking at the different tests, a lot of the students aren't really doing any better on the standardized tests. So I just think it's basically a waste of money.
I'm on the fence. I feel that it's just a different avenue, which is a good avenue to take to gain content knowledge. But again, the scores aren't showing improvement. So it's just a different, I feel it's the way of the future. However, it's just a different avenue to gain that content knowledge. Books and paper and pencils can do the same.
Okay, so it may or may not enhance the overall content knowledge, but do you feel that it enhances the educational experience for the student?
Oh, absolutely. It definitely does. I think what's happening here is because this is, becoming such a new trend in education. I don't know if we're properly training our staff members to utilize the technology appropriately to enhance student knowledge. I think we're still using computers a little bit safely. I think teachers need to take it to the next level to really enhance that student learning. And that can only be done with proper professional development.
I agree with Jay on this point. Jason, on this point. Use of technology, the primary result is student engagement. Students are more engaged when they're using their iPads or their iPhones or their computers. So student engagement does enhance the overall educational experience.
I still think that they may be engaged, but who are they going to be engaged with the teacher? Are they going to be engaged with their friends, chatting, social media? I just think that they learn all this stuff outside of schools, and why do we have to bring it in?
Okay, so then the million-dollar question, since school districts are pumping millions and millions of dollars into incorporating technology in their school districts, should we continue to implement technology into the classrooms, or should we revert back to traditional teaching practices?
We definitely need to keep moving forward, but I think with that, there is great caution. I think school districts need to do it appropriately. They need to fund great technology directors. Every building should have a technology head of some sort that is knowledgeable of how to help teachers implement, fix problems when they arise. Too many districts have just one technology force of a couple people, and the really big districts, they have to share those people throughout the whole district. Buildings get neglected, staff members get frustrated when their computers aren't working or there's glitches or whatnot. So what you're looking at 1 to 2 to 3 maybe schools in a district, in a county that have the money and the funding to do that the right way. Those are the schools that are going to set themselves apart from other schools. So as long as districts can do this the correct way, with the proper funding and the proper manpower, then it is absolutely necessary that we continue to move forward like that. But it has to be done the correct way.
I'll let you go on this one.
I think I agree, sort of basically agree with that. You're going to need the funding, and that's the biggest issue with the economy is how are we going to do that? And, basically some schools are going to be so much higher than other schools with that, and basically we're trying to teach all kids and keep them on the same level, and I just think that it's going to be unfair to the unprivileged schools.
I would have to say that is something that you'd have to take and have a big long discussion about that. Pumping millions of dollars into technology and not seeing any type of data that supports the use of it is a very hard sell to your taxpayers.
Okay, which leads us into the next question. In an era of financial shortfalls, is laying off teachers in favor of increasing school districts' technology capabilities, is that in the best interest of students these days?
I'm never a fan of laying off staff members, that's for sure. Unfortunately, I think that's what districts are being driven to, but I think we need to find a happy medium and a balance of being able to pull money from elsewhere, so that we don't have to lay off staff members to compensate, technology funds and things like that. Districts have to make it work. Principals need to get creative. Central offices need to get creative. I keep going back to there's good grants out there, great technology grants out there. If you can't get the money or you're not given the money, you have to find the money, and I think we can do that.
I have to agree with you on that. Very good point.
I agree as well. Laying off teachers are the most important person in the classroom, whether they have a computer in the classroom or not. So laying off teachers for the benefit of buying another computer is just not good.
So throw aside the aspiring principal persona and put yourself in the shoes of an average taxpayer in a school district. Do you feel, or would you continue to support increases to taxes, funding technology when there is little data to prove that it is not, or to prove that it is working?
Well, I have to say, in my previous statement, I do not, at this point in time, we don't have the data to support the use of technology to improve the educational, the experience I feel is improved. The educational data does not show anything. So right now, I think that's be a hard sell to your taxpayers, raise their taxes.
Definitely.
I think I could sell it to my taxpayers though, because I think I'm going to continue to revert back to this is good stuff. We're just using it improperly right now. We need to train our staff better, get better professional development. And I think I can sell it to my taxpayers that, with the right tools, the right resources, the right training, the data will increase because of this. I don't know if we're using it to its full potential right now.
I'm glad you brought that point up. I feel that right now the use of technology, while it's so new, some of the programs that we're using is so new, we still need to give it time to produce the results that we're looking for. Teacher development, how to use the technology to improve those data scores. That's something that we're still waiting for, and I think that's something that we need to be patient and keep on working towards.
I guess the hard thing to say would be, I guess it depends on your district, but the district I'm in, it's a lot of baby boomers are a lot older. Technology's not their thing. It's going to be really hard to try to get them to agree that technology's going to better their, the younger generations, because they feel like, hey, we got along fine without it, so can they.
Okay, so now, according to this article, the data, while weak, shows that increasing technology does little to improve the student scores on standardized tests. So here's the next question. Are we using the correct measurements for schools that are rich in technology? They're being measured currently against the current standardized tests. Do we need a different type of measure? Should we measure other things?
That might be worthwhile to look into. I'd be interested right now to find out how many years has this research going on. For any valid research, you're going to want to study something for a good 5 to 7 years to really get into the depths. Is it truly working? Some of these, you can't test and research something and only go off of a year or 2 years of implementation. Things need to improve, and over time, I think that data will go up. So,
well, I have to say, in 1997, a Science and Technology Committee was assembled by President Clinton to study these. Comes right from the article. To study that, and right now, their conclusion was that they do support technology in the classroom. However, they recommend the development of technology within America's schools to be deferred pending the completion of such research. So we're still looking into it.
They want it implemented now.
They want to implement it now.
If we wait, we'll be too far behind.
Right, but that was in 1997.
I was just going to say, think about that for a second. The Clinton era. What kind of technological devices were around at that time? Technology changes every 3 years, so it's hard to really gauge some research like that when the same tools aren't being used.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difficult situation to really test like that.
I wonder if they ever completed this study, obviously, since Mr. President Clinton is no longer in office.
So, do you feel that there is an overemphasis? Does the public have are they placing an overemphasis on the digital skills needed in the future?
Is the public?
Or our schools in general, is there an overemphasis on the digital skills that are needed in the future?
I think there is. I mean, a lot of the kids I see with my grandkids that they're constantly texting each other. They can't even just talk to each other. They're in the same room and they're texting. They don't have the social skills. I think that's what's gonna hurt.
But see, I think you need to find a good balance there. I don't think schools' positions and jobs are to solely create technological robots in class. There's still educational value to what's happening in public schools, and then you compensate that with technology. Technology does not take the place of what's happening in a daily lesson. And I do think we need to overemphasize this to the point where, even the less desirable jobs to a point. If we look at even if we go in the fast food realm, their technology is increasing as the years go on. It's no longer what it used to be. You walk into a McDonald's and you look at the ordering screens. I would take a while to figure them out, until you get all that stuff going. They have to be familiar with technological devices and things, even in the simplest jobs now, and that's only going to get worse, or I should say better, as the years go on.
You think that you get a job at McDonald's, they can train you to use their computer.
Yeah, but there needs to be a level of comfort. But in that perspective, there are already several classes that students can take throughout their education that pertain to just computers. And so that experience, as far as being comfortable with a computer in front of them to ring up somebody at a fast food restaurant and implementing it into the classroom. They can get comfortable with it with a specific IT course or typing or, just a simple business course that has some technology incorporated into it.
Sure. So one final question to wrap up. Should school districts continue to seek results from technology spending?
Absolutely. I believe so. I believe there must be some tracking as to what is being done, how it's being used, and then reflect upon that throughout the year and try to gain some kind of gauge as to whether we're being successful implementing the technology where scores are, because the main goal for schools is student achievement. Improve and increase student achievement. And we need to figure out a way to do that with technology.
I agree. All right, so there you have it, a wrap-up of the article by Matt Richtel, In the Classroom of the Future, Stagnant Scores by the New York Times.
So, how many of you guys have Facebook? Or like some sort of social media type thing?
I do not have the book face.
I do.
I have one that I barely use because I get weird about it.
Yeah, so I just started using Instagram, and I thought that, this might not be a good idea because, I have some students that possibly could gain access to my profile, but I just make sure that I'm mindful of what I put up. But as I was looking at the internet, I found an article from actually the National Education Association talking about social networking nightmares, and it was by Mike Simpson. Has a picture of a college student who was in her student teaching portion of her college career, and she has a picture of herself up that has her name, that she's tagged in, dressed in a pirate outfit, drinking out of a cup, and saying that she's the drunken pirate. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it's a little bit sketchy and we have to be wary of it. I think that we really need to look at, is it a school district's right to regulate an educator's or potential educator's personal social media use?
I think when it comes down to it, it's all about your professionalism. And, if you are a professional and you're an educator, then you're going to be very leery as to what it is that you post. I know for myself, I'm the typical mom. Everything's mom-based. It's all my kids and my family. And if there is any kind of a situation where it's pictures of me with my friends or even with my family and there's alcohol in the vicinity of which we are in, I make sure that that's not in the picture. You have to be very careful. Even though everything on my Facebook itself is private, there are still kids that are able to access things through some way or another. So it all comes down to your professionalism and making sure that you are leery of what it is that you're posting.
Yeah, teachers are set at a higher social standard than, some other professions. However, even though I don't have the book face, I have plenty of friends that do, so sometimes it could be a little, as you would say, sketchy. If someone takes a picture of me and posts it on the internet, how can I be held accountable for someone else's picture? If I choose to indulge in an adult beverage, do I have to do so in my basement with, the windows drawn? Have we gotten to that point? I don't know. It seems as though we have.
Well, it's funny that you said that because just recently in my district, they just proposed a policy, and it actually did get voted in, where you may have Facebook because they can't take that away from you based on the First Amendment and the freedom of speech, but you have to make sure you're using it carefully and you're mindful of what you put on it. If there's anything suggestive or anything that's inappropriate on your page, you are accountable for it. Like, for example, the beer example you gave. But then what I found most, I guess, shocking with the whole policy was the fact that if one of my friends, which I don't have Facebook, by the way, but one of my friends posts a picture of me with a beer in my hand or me out partying, I'm still accountable for that, even though she posted that on there. But like one of my fellow colleagues here said, how would I know that she posted on there if I don't have it?
Opens up a whole world of paranoia. Everywhere you go, you're going to be concerned about what your image is out there, which I like to consider myself very, very professional. I'm very conscientious of these types of things when it comes to student coaching, because lately that blows up in the media all the time. This teacher had this inappropriate interaction with students, and I'm very maybe paranoid about that, but anytime that I am out and things like that, I'm really worried about people taking cell phone pictures and posting them on Facebook and things like that, because I don't want my image blown up by somebody else.
True. And we have to be careful when saying social media, because social media doesn't just lend itself to Facebook. I know through our readings we also talked about the Twitter, as well as Instagram and other forms of social media that could be a little more user-friendly as far as education goes. Like sitting here in class, we've all been tweeting, and it's been very educational, but I'm sure, we can get on a Twitter rave about beer. And is someone going to misconstrue, because I'm a huge fan of microbreweries, that I'm some sort of closet alcoholic and that spills over into my classroom? So
with all the technology, it comes down to, I think, how you use it. One of the articles that I read in USA Today by Lori Grisham was Teachers, Students, and Social Media, Where is the Line? And one teacher at the school district was using Facebook and had friended 200 some students, was using it completely innocently as an educational tool to help them out with homework and things, but there was no way to prove that. The district no longer wanted her to have those students as friends. Within that same district, there was another teacher who had an inappropriate relationship with a student via that same social media. And the third example was a teacher who was using Twitter within the classroom. The students were not allowed to use their personal Twitter accounts because they were posting things that he didn't think was appropriate. So he made each of those students create a professional account for Twitter that they used for educational purposes. They were using it in a political science class to follow politicians and trends like that. So there's always ways to use social medias appropriately, but as an educator, you have to kind of walk that fine line on where is it going to fall, how are your district administrators going to feel about your use, how are you going to prove that it's appropriate.
It's funny that you touched on that article, because I read the same exact article, and within that article, it wasn't just an educator, like a traditional educator, like a contracted teacher, but a 79-year-old substitute teacher from New Hampshire who had over 200 friends on Facebook, and a lot of them were the students that she was substituting in classrooms for. And she actually was arrested on the account of that. She was having inappropriate conversations with students, and she said she had no idea. She would no longer be on the substitute list, and she's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not taking those kids off, because I felt like I have such an emotional connection to them that I was able to help them and counsel them on sensitive subjects such as bullying and depression through the Facebook messaging. So she felt like it was a resource for them.
So I guess the question is it appropriate or professional or even beneficial to have contacts with students via various forms of social media?
I was originally on the belief against side, correct? But you also have to keep an account when you enter a school building. All your social media doesn't stop. Why cut a cord just because they enter a new set of doors? How can you ignore the fact that all these kids are on Facebook? How can you ignore the fact that all these kids are on Twitter? Do you just pretend like in four walls none of that stuff exists? It's kind of hard, and it's unrealistic. Other workplaces, I have a second job, and because technology is so prevalent, they needed to sort of revamp some of their technological use policies because people are connected all day, every day. It wasn't realistic. People were getting too many infractions. So I think it's unfair to treat a school building like a prison, a technological prison. If these kids are connected and they get information via Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Instagram. Why act like none of that exists in a school?
Right. So, in the educational aspect of it, I personally probably would not communicate with students via Facebook for educational reasons or Twitter. However, I know that there's a lot of situations, especially in high school and in college, where professors communicate with their students through assignments and things like that through Twitter. And specifically, my siblings, when they were in high school, that's how they dealt with a lot of their assignments, was through Twitter accounts with their teachers. And once again, I think if you're going to have ask your students to create a separate Twitter account in which it's just the students in the classroom and the professor, I would never want access to their personal Twitter or Facebook accounts. But if it was simply a school-related account, I would think it would definitely be appropriate. There are so many resources through Twitter which students can learn from. So I agree with the fact that we cannot just shelter ourselves from the idea that there is social media. We need to embrace it in a sense, as long as it's being used professionally.
So overall, I'd say that the issue is being professional and conscious of your use of social media, just as we would expect of our students. We expect them to use it in a smart way so that they don't have to deal with consequences. Adults should be at the same standard. You could have your accounts, but be mindful of what you're posting and try not to get yourself into any trouble.
Thanks for helping RSP top the charts in the Edu podcast world. Keep it real with Twisted Steel and School Appeal.